Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Lucinda. Welcome to my home. I cannot wait to show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, my name is Lucinda Loya. I'm an interior designer. Welcome to my home in Louisville, Kentucky. I am from a small town named Jeffersonville, Indiana, which is just over the river from Louisville. After moving away in '76, I had always wanted to find my roots back here. I settled in to a home here in Louisville, Kentucky that has a lot of history. It is filled with lots of nostalgia. I have heirlooms from my family. I have lots of innuendos throughout the home that represent my upbringing in my small town of Jeffersonville, and I can't wait to share that with you. Welcome to my entry. First, I'd like to start with the tile here from the early 1800s. It was installed back when the home was built, and it had probably 15 layers of paint on top of these tiles. And I didn't realize what was underneath the paint, but I did notice that it was kind of lumpy, and I thought maybe it was just caked on through the years. And once we started sanding, we realized, wait a minute, there's something really important under here. So after doing a little antiquing in the area, I learned that these tiles are very collectible. And so we spent many weeks sanding these tiles to the surface so they could be presented in the most beautiful way, and they add a lot of character to the house. Another thing that I wanted to bring into the home, and it was important to me, besides color, I wanted to bring in some depression glass, because one of the most important people of my upbringing were my great-grandmother and grandfather, and they lived during the Depression. And while I was being raised and hearing some of their stories, my grandmother often talked about depression glass and the Depression, and we heard all kinds of crazy stories. So I needed to represent that in this home, and what better way to do that with a colorful entrance to my front door on this beautiful table, and this collection of antique or depression glass that I sourced all over Louisville and beyond. I didn't quit until I filled the entire table with these depression candlesticks. One of my most precious pieces that I have from a child was a depression glass bowl that my grandmother gave me, and you will see that in the dining room. Another fun fact about this house is, growing up in the '70s, fake flowers were a big part of our lives, and they must have been invented then. I'm not sure why they were such a thing, but because they were, I needed them in this house. So you will see in every room fake flowers of all colors. So let's go to the dining room. Welcome to my dining room. I'd love to tell you about this fabulous chandelier done by the artist Francesca Di Mattia. This chandelier sets the tone on how I began decorating the home. It was one of the first pieces we bought, and we found it in a gallery. It was in a room all of its own, and it was hung very low. And I was so intrigued. I walked around it and discovered pieces, the little intricacies of it throughout, and literally chuckled and enjoyed just staring at it for 30 minutes. But after walking away from it and leaving the gallery, I realized, oh my gosh, we have to have this. But it didn't make sense to put such an extravagant piece that probably wouldn't even fit in this dining room in this home, because I did not plan to decorate the way that I ended up decorating the home. But once we purchased this piece, it just totally set the tone. So from there, I took cues throughout the home and added unique chandeliers and light fixtures, and I really started collecting art that seemed so fitting for the space. You will see like this piece here by Vanessa Beecroft. It's got a 70s influence, and just under that you will see my precious bowl that I grew up with that my grandmother gave me, the Depression glass that I mentioned earlier. I decided that this classic S-shaped chair called the Pantone chair needed to be in this olive green, which very much represented the 70s. A part of the concept in how I moved through the home with decor is I decided to basically stand by a theory, it's so wrong it's right. And by adding these blue splash painted drapes that basically didn't match anything in the room, felt so perfect to me. And as I said, all the colors throughout the home are bounced around in every single room, whether intense or not. It was important that I had a color represented in every room. When I begin a design project, I always take a look at the architecture, the lifestyle of the family, how they live, and whether they have children or pets, etc. With this particular home being built in 1875, I knew that there was a lot of storytelling that needed to take place, as if these walls could talk. So I decided I needed a lot of character and influences throughout those years of 1875, and I was quite emotional around the period in which I decorated this home. Anything between 1875 and 1976, when I left the area, was allowed in the home. So there was a big gap between 1976 and when I bought the home in 2020, that nothing could be in the home from that period for whatever reason. And it was just a personal thing for me. And then anything from 2020 to current was allowed in the home. So I was very strict with this concept in every decision I made. But it was important to me to bring in a lot of nostalgia just from my past and being in this area, and lots of representation of those influences. So that came by color, pattern, texture, things like Depression glass and antique mirrors with gold veining and shag carpet and lots of things that you would have seen back in like the 70s. Please join me in the living room. Welcome to the living room. When I approached this living room, I wanted it to feel kind of like a speakeasy, boutique hotel that you might have seen back in the 70s. And back then, sofas were always pushed against the wall. So I knew that had to happen in here. And to take advantage of such a small room, I just stretched these sofas as long as I could get them so we could host as many people in the room that we could. And so I began there, and I mixed patterns and textures. I added drink tables and one fun architectural chair right smack dab in the middle of the room that can spin around and join any conversation. And being that the room was small, I wanted to bring in this antique mirror with the gold veining that I very much remember starting probably around 8 years old. I love layering, and I layered things. I'm still layering things throughout the home as I find something new, or I get a gift, or whatever. I find a place for it in this home. To me, I can't get enough. Another 70s element were these brass colored drapes. They remind me so much of growing up. And the very last thing that I added to this room not knowing exactly what I would do for a rug. I kept trying, in my mind, I kept trying to match this or match that or trim a rug out in another color, or I just wasn't sure exactly what to do. And then it dawned on me, I need something crazy. So I got this rug from the rug company, and I think it really sets the tone in here. I have a bug phobia, and for whatever reason, spiders don't scare me. And I ran across this artist that does really unique lighting, and I actually commissioned him to create a spider that I have on my ceiling. There are 9 fireplaces in this home. All of them are made of slate, but you will notice throughout they all look a little different. And some of these have been painted with layers and layers of white paint. And in the dining room, I actually faux painted it to look like blue and white marble. In the bourbon room, I chose to reveal that slate. Let's go take a look. The most important thing in this house is this grandfather clock. It is my great-grandfather's. It has been passed down, and it's something that every one of us in the family wanted to acquire. My only uncle among 7 siblings ended up with this, and he had it for years. I tried to buy it from him once. The answer was no every time I asked. And when I bought this home, I said the first thing I'm going to buy for it is going to be a grandfather clock that would remind me of my days in my small hometown, spending the night with Grandma and Grandpa. My uncle said, you know, I don't think you'll have to buy one. And of course I started crying. I remember so many times my grandfather on a daily basis adjusting and tuning and adjusting the clock and fine-tuning the works within it. It even has his handwritten notes on how to take care of this clock. I remember waking up all through the years to the chime of this grandfather clock. Here we are in the bourbon room, and I'd love to show this fireplace to you. If you take a closer look, you can see some of the detail that is represented here, and you can also see bits of paint that is still left in some of the crevices, unfortunately. So when I decided to buy this home, I convinced my husband that it was a good idea because it had a bourbon room. It didn't really have a bourbon room, but I created a bourbon room to make him excited about the home as well. One of our favorite things to do in this room is to taste bourbon. And one of my favorites, of course, is Pappy Van Winkle. I chose to use darker, moody colors in this room. We spend a lot of evenings here, and the paint color is actually Sherwin-Williams Caviar. It's one of my favorites, and I use it a lot in my projects. One of the first things that I purchased for this room was what we call Grandma, because of course Grandma was a big influence in my life and in the decor of this home, although this is not my grandma. But this portrait was exactly what I wanted to represent in this room. She is happy, she's ready to chit chat or party, or probably waiting on her cocktail. So she just seems so fitting for this space. We often refer to this home as our Derby home. We certainly come back every year for the Derby, and this year may have been our 30th. I haven't counted, but you will see lots of Derby hats all collected, and they continue to grow and become layered on the wall. We're running out of room actually, but when friends join us for the Derby, if they don't have a hat, we fit them in a hat. But all of these hats have been worn to the Derby, and some have brought good luck, some haven't. This is probably my favorite hat on the wall because it's actually a true Derby hat, vintage, of course. I wanted this home to be a happy home for anyone who walked through the doors. With that came a lot of color. I used basically every color of the rainbow in every room. And when I would get stuck on a color scheme for each room, I would ask myself, gosh, what color's not in this room that's next door? What color did I forget to use? And if there was a blue or a pink or red, what have you, it didn't have to be that exact color. I just wanted another version of red or another version of pink. It could be light pink, hot pink. It could be basically any color. Or any shade. I just wanted to have a particular balance throughout the home so it felt cohesive. Why don't you join me into the parlor? This is one of my favorite rooms, the parlor. It is actually off of the kitchen, and because I knew I would have a lot of house guests and share my home, I decided to make this parlor a bedroom. Of course, I have to bring in an antique bed, and it needed to be a twin because this room isn't very large. And I acquired this precious lamp from my great-grandmother. It is pattern galore in here, and I started with the classic blue and white china that you might have seen back in the day. This wallpaper is by Christian Lacroix, as well as the drapery fabric. This is the one exception that I made in not using quilted fabrics for drapes, but I did use colorful lace shears just to bring in a sense of vintage. I sourced this light fixture from the Upper East, and it seemed so perfect since all of the lighting in the home needed to have a lot of personality, since we started with that dining room fixture that I mentioned earlier. Sometimes in a small room, it's better to just go crazy with pattern or intensity and color. And I decided to just layer quilts on most all of my beds throughout the home. And if you join me, we'll head on into the kitchen. Welcome to the kitchen. One of my favorite things about this kitchen are the ceiling heights throughout, 18.5 feet high. And it's so unusual, it's so rare to have such high ceilings in a kitchen such as this. And it allows for tall windows and of course doors. And I love the exposed brick because the architecture in the home actually evolved through the years, and you will see upstairs how the architecture shifted through the years. There are some random things that have happened that no one can quite understand, but I will show that to you. But here in the kitchen, I definitely wanted to bring in a horse in the home somewhere, and I found this old rusted horse bust that I thought was perfect, and I hung it really high to emphasize the ceiling height in the kitchen. And unlike most kitchens, you will find there were no upper cabinets throughout, because back in the day things were simple. They had enough dishes to serve their family, and sometimes not much more than that. So big cabinetry or lots of cabinetry, lots of storage wasn't necessarily important to them. So I got to decorate this kitchen wall in a more unique way. Contrast is important to me, and I brought in a little black into the kitchen. The lower and upper cabinets are existing, and as well as the countertops. The home has been remodeled over the years, and this is actually the way that I acquired it. But I had a blast decorating it. I also added these crazy drapes, which you don't typically see in a kitchen either, but this takes you out to my fun backyard, and I can't wait to show that to you. This is my backyard. You may not have recognized it if you had seen this backyard when I bought the home. It was an overgrown floral jungle. You hardly saw any of the grounds, and it's such a great space. It's so open and beautiful. We've thrown parties out here. We've set up bands. We've tinted it. We've done a lot in this backyard and have so many fun memories. I wanted to take an architectural approach to the backyard and present it in a way of like an English garden, if you will. I added the fire pit, the seating, of course, and these really cool vintage planters. The statue at the end of the walkway is actually original from 1875 when the home was built. So it was important to keep it. This backyard is one of my favorite places to be. The weather here is always so great. It's got 4 seasons, but those transitional seasons are super fun for me to be out here with friends or family, have a glass of wine, dinner, breakfast, what have you. I spend a lot of time out here. And one of the things that I thought would be fun to do is I named the house on the backside, because over at Churchill Downs, in the back of a racetrack, there's always a backside, and that's where the horse stables are and the horses live. I'd love to take you down to my wine cellar. Welcome to this wine cellar. It's super fun. It used to be a storm cellar, and we converted it into a wine cellar. We have some of our favorite wines here. The floor was full of probably 6 inches of mud when we started, and all of that obviously had to be cleared out. We kept with the period of the home. These are old railroad track beams that it was made of. Growing up in a small town, it had never occurred to me that you could be an interior designer, let alone make money at it. I started designing, I would say, at a very early age. I used to babysit, and I would redecorate the family home while the parents were away and the children were asleep. I would move their sofa around the room or fluff their pillows, even do the dishes, clean up the kitchen. Like I wanted the surroundings to be beautiful when they came home. And I think that later in life, when I decided that interior design was something I was very, very interested in, I thought back, gosh, that's probably been in my DNA for as long as I can remember. After moving to a big city, I learned that there were so many more opportunities in terms of a career, and at the time, it was really most important that I get a job later in my life. And I did various things, but I always had a side hustle of some sort, such as jewelry making, being a stylist in fashion, and making my apartment as cute as it could be. And then one day, a girlfriend asked me for help after she and her husband bought a new home, and we decorated it together. And it turned out really great. Then another friend asked me to help them, and another friend, and before you know it, this was something I realized that I really wanted to do. So I went to school at the Art Institute to really understand interiors and the principles of design and art history and all of the things that I felt I needed to know to do this job well, once I realized it was something that I loved and it was kind of working for me. So ever since, I haven't looked back. Welcome to my bedroom. So this is the second floor of the home. We have a few bedrooms here. We have these makeshift closets because, again, back in the day, closets didn't exist. Pillows here are super fun. I picked them up at a hotel in Mexico City, and I thought the eclectic kind of Victorian sensibility about them was perfect, and I wanted to enjoy them, so I put them on my bed. You will see Barbie on my mantle, and the reason for that is she was such an influence in my life. She was such a fond memory growing up with all of my cousins. We always played Barbies, and a girlfriend came to visit and brought me my very own Barbie. This is my grandmother's hat. I feel like I talk about my grandmother so much. This is my grandfather's clock. I love collecting art and I can't get enough of it. And this house is the perfect palette for such a thing because I can just add as much as I'd like anywhere. I can layer it, I stack it, you'll see throughout, including here in my bathroom. I have taken every opportunity to hang art, even in the windowsill between the windows. This is my makeshift vanity that I turned into from like an old armoire. And I love this bathroom because not only are the ceilings high, but I get such great lighting. And right here is where all the magic happens. One of my favorite art installations is actually this row of pieces. And they're all very eclectic and collected, and I still have room to go. And I had to then pick up over here on this other side because I was finding too many wonderful little pieces that would work. So I've continued that thought process over on the other side of the bathroom. What inspires me most about interior design is travel and seeing new things. And it doesn't have to be necessarily in another country. I am inspired by the antiquities and just local remnants, fabric or local artifacts that you might find what I call junking around town in any city. I am influenced by architecture and textures and fabrics and patterns, and just about anything inspires me. And if something catches my eye, I may stop and think, gosh, wait, what can we do with that? Or if I see the leg on a really cool antique table, it may influence me to design a lamp around it or turn it into a lamp. Or I've taken different things and turned it into different furniture pieces that are quite unique. And what interiors offers me is a chance to be creative, and that's really what I need to do. Would you like to join me in the TV room? This is where my girls have grown up and have probably spent most of their time playing Just Dance and dancing in this living room. So we have so many photos and fun memories of that. Now they're 21 and 23 and they no longer just dance. When I think about an old home, I think about real oil paintings. And I started a collection a very long time ago. And when I bought this home, I decided to hang them here and paint the room this vibrant, vibrant blue to make all of these colors pop. It actually ended up on a couple of magazine covers. That's how fabulous it is and how well it photographs. Some of the pieces are vintage and some of them are actually fine art pieces that I've picked up at art fairs such as Art Basel in Miami. The sofa is something I actually purchased, but it reminded me of those quilts that I was talking about earlier that we grew up with. This is probably one of my favorite bedrooms in the home. I love it because it's so cozy and it's spacious. And one of the clever things that we did here is took a vintage trunk and turned it into a vanity. What I love most about this home is sharing it with friends and family. What I enjoy the most is when they come in the door and they start giggling at maybe a whimsical piece or how things are put together, and they ask me a ton of questions, and I love sharing why I've made certain decisions throughout this home. And another thing that I love is you are never bored. There is so much to look at literally in every room. And I can't wait to share that with you. Welcome to the third floor. This is an example of some of the crazy architecture that may have taken place. We have this random door that I'm not really sure why it's there, The railing, the wood railing around the staircase is actually a floor support. So I know that at some point this must have been closed off. And when we bought the home, it was actually 5 apartments, and this being one, that being another, and the floor below being into 2, and the one bottom floor was its own apartment. So all of the rooms were actually fitted out with a kitchen, a living room, and a bedroom, and a bathroom. Once I acquired the home, I turned it into a single family home. And in here you will see this is actually what we call the back apartment. And I'll show you in a minute the front apartment. This is the living room, and I remodeled the kitchen. This opening didn't exist. I felt it was important to open up the wall and make it feel a little more spacious. And if you'll follow me, I'll show you into the bedroom. I basically followed no rules while decorating this home other than my own emotional time period that I mentioned at the beginning. And I often ask myself, is it so wrong it's right? And the answer was usually yes. I had no expectation, and there was no reason for things to match perfectly. This needed to feel like it accumulated its belongings over time, which is similar to what happens when a family evolves and things remain and new things come in, and they may not be changed out, and it just somehow seems to work. Another fun fact about this home is, as I mentioned, it was 5 apartments, and this 3rd floor was 2 different apartments, and the front door to enter them was here. And this is the front apartment, and I can't wait to show you where the front door exists inside that apartment. Come on into the front apartment. I'd like to show you the living room and the kitchen. I actually took the kitchen out and put in a bed so I could sleep more guests. But this is the very small living room, and again, another slate fireplace. And again, you'll see some quilted fabric that I used as drapes and more lace shears. But in this particular front apartment, you'd have to be very good friends to share this apartment, because the kitchen bed actually is shared by the bedroom bathroom, and this is actually the bathroom to be shared with the kitchen bed and the bedroom bed. So you have to be really good friends. I love this room. The dark teal walls with this bright chartreuse quilted fabric that I found for these drapes, I absolutely love it. Although I have this disguised with a towel rack, behind it is actually the front door to this apartment. So if someone was getting picked up on a date, they would have to come through the bathroom. I have to catch myself, because when I talk about the home, I tend to get emotional, and I often tear up or quiver. My voice may quiver. And that happens to me when I share the home with my friends and family, or even a stranger. When I describe why I decorated it, it came with so much emotion. So it's hard to hold back the tears. Homeworthy, I thoroughly enjoyed showing you my home. Now I have to catch a flight. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.